so I can take my glasses off.
Dogs.
Even if you're vaccinated,
Anybody else going out? Eventually. Okay. Good afternoon. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of September 22nd, 2021. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm chairman of the board. Mr. Josh Whitehead serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Whitehead, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Baker.
here,
Mr. Jackson.
Here.
Mr. Malazri.
Here.
Ms. Skurlock.
here,
Dr. Pritchard. And Mr. Chairman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County. We were established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variances from the zoning ordinance, and other requests as articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed, 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council and the Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. At this time, I would like to swear in the staff. You may remain seated. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, thank you. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second or any discussion?
second,
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Mr. Secretary, please provide us a secretary's report, if there is one this month, and then explain the procedure for today's meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I think you did get a correspondence from your attorney, Robert Rawling, with regard to a pending lawsuit. You will be represented by an attorney well-versed in variance and zoning law, Ed McKinney. So he will be your point of contact on that appeal. At this point, let me go back, Mr. Chairman, to my appropriate place. We'll talk about the procedure for this meeting. I'll introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are found on the front podium to your right. For each case, staff with the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation containing site plans, photographs, and maps of the subject property. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, those in support of the application will be given an opportunity to testify, followed by parties in opposition to the application. According to our rules of procedure, the applicant and any supporters have a total of 10 minutes, followed by opposition that'll have 10 minutes. Then we'll go back to the applicant for a 2-minute rebuttal period. These times do not include time for Q&A by members of the board to individuals providing testimony. At the conclusion of those 2 sets or those 3 sets of time, the board will then have any final questions for anyone providing testimony, then make a motion, second, and then we'll go into into deliberation. If there's additional questions that a board member wishes to ask of a member of the audience who has provided testimony, we'll need a 2/3 vote to reopen the public hearing, at which point we will hear from both sides an equal amount of time. All motions by this board will be made in the affirmative. The private acts governing the board require the affirmative vote of at least 5 members to approve an application, regardless of those members present. And I'll make a note that Ms. Doss is here. The board may also vote to hold an application for a period not exceeding 90 days. All section numbers that we referred to this afternoon come from the Memphis-Shelby County Unified Development Code, the UDC, which was adopted by the City Council and the County Commission in 2010. I will introduce the entire UDC to make it part of today's record, thus dispensing with the reading of individual sections that we'll be discussing this afternoon. This body is vested with the power to act on these cases before us today under the provisions of Chapter 9.22 of the UDC. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all other notice requirements have been fulfilled according to the UDC.
All right, thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this point, the board will establish the consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the Secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the audience, staff, or board member objects to a case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should do so by a show of hands when the Secretary reads the case. Once the consent agenda is established, the board will vote on all cases placed on the consent agenda as a whole, will not hold individual public hearings on those cases. Mr. Secretary, which items on our agenda are eligible to be placed on consent today?
And just to reiterate, what we do with our consent agenda is if the applicant in the audience agree to the conditions provided in the staff report, then you can be approved on the consent agenda. We have speakers cards for 4 cases, so those are automatically ineligible for the consent. That said, if you're an applicant who would like to contest one of the conditions of approval, raise your hand. Or if you're a member of opposition that just has not yet filled out a speaker's card, when I call these cases eligible for consent, just raise your hand. So we're going to hear number 1, we're going to hear number 2, and we're going to hear number 3. So our first case, as listed on the agenda, eligible for consent, is agenda item number 4, docket VOA 21101, located at 534 McLemore. The applicant is Mark Namyad. The use district is the R6 Single Family District, and the request is a use variance from section 252 to allow a quadplex. Agenda item
Mr.
number 5
Whitehead,
is...
I'd like to pull that one off for
Okay.
discussion. I have a question, or some questions about it.
Agenda item number 5, docket BOA 21104, located at 4661 Burbank. The applicant is the Jordan Aluminum Extrusion Company, represented by David Harper, located in the EMP zoning district, and the request being a variance from section 310.2 to allow an encroachment into a rear yard setback. Agenda item number 6, that's docket BOA 21106, located on the north side of Democrat, about 300 feet west of Chulahoma. The applicant is FedEx. The use district is also the EMP employment district, and the request is a variance from 455D of the UDC to allow a surface parking lot with reduced interior landscaping. Number 7 is docket BOA 21109, located at 5884 US Highway 51. The applicant is Jeffrey McCoy. The use district, we have a theme here, is the EMP employment district, and the request is a use variance from section 252 to allow a single family residence. And I'll make note that our vice chair has arrived, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 9, that's docket BOA 21111, located at 3744 Sturgeon. The applicant is Tanya Walker Barnes. The use district is the R6 Single Family District, and the request is a variance from 262B2 to allow a group daycare home on a minor local street that's not within 150 feet of an arterial.
Mr. Whitehead, I'd like to pull that one off. I have questions about that one also.
Number 10, docket BOA 21112, located on the north side of Highland Park Place, just east of Holmes. The applicant is Ed Apple. The use district is the R6 Single Family District, and the request is a variance from item 361 and 3928 to allow a front-facing garage. Mr. Thomas. Front-facing garage. Okay. Number 11, we're going to hear, I'll do a short presentation on number 11. So that leaves us with 5, 6, 7, and 10.
All right, very good. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as established by the Secretary, which is approved cases 5, 6, 7, and 10?
So move.
There's
Second.
Being moved and seconded. Is there, I'm going to remind the board that by voting on the consent agenda, he or she affirms that he or she has read the staff report and is full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, may I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Baker.
Yes.
Ms. Doss.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Melasry?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Sims?
Yes.
Ms. Gerlach?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
8 ayes.
All right, so if you are here for case 5, 6, 7, or 10, you've been approved as conditioned by staff. Thank you for coming down today. Mr. Secretary, could you call our first case we're going to hear today?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Agenda item number 1 is docket BOA 2189, located at 2100 Elvis Presley. The applicant is Robert McCormick. The use district is the CMU3 zoning district, and the request is a variance from 483 to allow outdoor storage of tractor trailers and heavy trucks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Speakers cards. Ms. Shoopdix, could you give us a staff report, please?
Yes, Clark Shoopdix, Division of Planning and Development. The item before you is BOA 21-89. The applicant is Robert McCormick. The location is 2100 Elvis Presley Boulevard. And again, the request is a variance from section 4.8.3 to allow outdoor storage of tractor trailers and heavy trucks. So the property is currently zoned commercial mixed use 3, and the current land use is commercial. There's an existing on-site trucking business at this location, and it is adjacent to single-family residential, commercial, and industrial land uses. I'd also like to note that the proposal is inconsistent with Memphis 3.0. However, consistency is not required for variance requests. So here you'll see site photos. The imagery here is from July of 2021. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that there are existing heavy trucks and tractor trailers that are currently parked on site, again in association with the existing trucking business, which has been present at this location for approximately 20 years. Currently, as shown in these photos, the existing parking of these trucks is not permitted under the UDC, and currently there are trucks being parked in the clear sight triangle at the intersection of Elvis Presley Boulevard and Elliston Road, as well as trucks being parked on the sidewalk, which is shown on the right-hand side of the screen as well. So here is a site plan that was submitted by the applicant. This case was held from last month's meeting on August 25th to allow the applicant time to develop this site plan. The most notable feature of the site plan are the tractor trailer and heavy truck parking spaces, which are shown on the eastern property lines and southern property lines. But again, according to the applicant's site plan, they would like to have 2 of these parking spaces at the corner of Elvis Presley and Elliston Road, which again is in violation of the UDC's clear sight triangle provisions. And then the majority of the parking will be concentrated along the boundary of this property and the single-family residential properties to the east. There is existing landscaping already present along this eastern property boundary, but there is a single-family area on the other side of the landscape buffer. So the applicant is seeking relief from section 4.8.3 of the Unified Development Code to allow outdoor storage of tractor trailers and heavy trucks. The existing on-site trucking business is permitted by right, and according to the applicant has been present at this location for 20 to 23 years. However, the applicant has recently been cited by the Office of Construction Enforcement related to the unpermitted outdoor storage of tractor trailers on the site. And members of the community have also raised safety concerns regarding the visual obstruction of the intersection, again, of Elvis Presley and Elliston Road by trailers parked along that southern property line. So staff finds that there is no hardship or practical difficulty that has been presented by the applicant that would justify approving this variance, and that legitimizing the on-site storage of tractor trailers and heavy trucks will continue to adversely impact the quality of life in the surrounding neighborhood. And with that, staff recommends rejection. However, if approved, staff recommends the conditions listed on the screen. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question, too. So has this business that you know of operated this way for 20 years with the storage of the trucks, or is that something that changed to get them cited?
That might be a question for the applicant,
okay.
But they have told staff that They took ownership of the business in 2017. So
Okay.
at least since 2017, when the applicant became the property owner, they've been using the property in this manner.
Okay. Any other questions right now for staff? All right, if the applicant will come up. Mr. Smith, how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Doing good. If you'll give your name and address for the record, then I'll swear you in.
Delano Smith, 3831 Lakehurst Drive, Memphis, Tennessee, 38128.
All right, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I'd first like to start off and say that we're requesting a hold. The first hold was processed because our check got lost, and I think the Shelby County Sheriff Department actually cashed our check. So once we found it, we actually had about 5 days to digest all this information. I mean, once we got the report, we had about 5 days to digest this information. And we're just requesting some time to actually get with our opposition, discuss what can be done, also get with the planning department and modify our site plan to make it more aesthetically pleasing and safe.
Okay.
Which is no problem. We know we can do that.
So, and we held last month. What is different between, explain what's different between this month's hold and last month's hold.
Last month hold, we just submitted a check that got lost.
Okay.
And once we found it, it was pushed us into a really tight timeline.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. All right. There is opposition to this case. So I need to see from them if that's something we can do. But I got a lot of time left that we're reserving here, Mr. Smith. Like, that was only 30 seconds, so we got quite a bit. All right, if the opposition would come forward, we'd like to ask y'all whether or not y'all be amenable to a hold. I know y'all have come down here today. And I have several people to talk. I can call out names or y'all can line up and speak to me yourself. Okay, if you'll state your name and address for the record.
My name is Cassandra Dixon, 2300 Rawlins Street, Memphis, Tennessee, 38106.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. So the first question, before you get started, so the applicant is asking to have some time to get with you, discuss things, try to make a better plan for what can happen. Would y'all be amenable?
Yes, sir. We do not want to yield that opportunity because this has been ongoing and ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And when a person has, we don't feel that he's doing this in good faith at all. Because we're the community, we're there. We're here. We live there. So even though he said he's been there 20-something years,
Mm-hmm.
he's in violation, been in violation with Shelby County Code Enforcement. This is nothing new. And he had ample time to do the site plans adequately.
Okay, then let's go ahead and talk about the case then.
Okay.
Right, Mr. Chairman, I was going to suggest, let's go ahead and get testimony from both sides as if this was a brand-new case, and then at the conclusion of everything, the body can determine to approve it, reject it, or hold it.
Would you suggest we go, are we good just sticking with the opposition and then going back for the applicant? Or should we go backwards in time?
Well, now that we've heard from who I can fairly say is a spokesperson for the neighborhood, why don't we allow Mr. Dellner an opportunity to present, assuming that it might not be held, and then we'll just start from there and go through our normal course.
Okay, so we're going to let him present, then y'all give your opposition, but we just kind of wanted to get that out of the way. Thank you. And Mr. Smith, you can come back. And so if y'all want to just have a seat back where you were, and then we'll call you back up in a couple minutes. All right, go ahead, sir.
Okay. The site has been used for bulk mail services for the past 20 or 30 years. And they bought the Mr. bought the property from Mr. Phillips, who was a longtime buck mail service for the buck mail center right down the street. The site plan, we talked about, discussed, we got the report about 3 days ago. We talked about, I got the report 5 days ago, but we discussed it 3 days ago, that we would be willing to remove the sign, add landscaping, and also remove the parking, truck parking, and isolate it to the rear, only car parking in front, and add more landscaping. And we think that the major concern with this is that they've been there for, well, this use has been there for over 20-some years. The owner purchased it thinking that this process could continue. And they put tons of money into this business, and what they want to do is just to continue, but make the site safer. That's basically what I want to say at this point, and save the rest of my time for the rebuttal.
Okay. I got a question for you real quick. Sorry, let me just write that down. You know, I know that you've only had it since, your client's only had it since 2017. Do you know how long they've been parking trucks there, to your knowledge? Has it been the whole time?
Well, I'm thinking they've been doing that, from what I understand from the owner, and he got sick. He's in Nashville. He couldn't come down today. What I understand is that they took the business directly from Mr. From the other previous owner, and they were doing the same thing. Had a service bay and also parking buck mail trucks and trailers there.
Okay, very good. Are there any other questions for Mr. Smith at this time? Seeing none? Okay, thank you. We got 8 minutes reserved.
And Mr. Chairman, as you call up the opposition, I might ask Ms. Shoup Diggs to go to Google, because your answer may be revealed in the Google Street View images that go back to, I think, 2007 in Memphis.
Should I ask her to do that, or do you think she heard you mention it?
I think she did.
All right, if the opposition will come, so we can start again with Ms. Dixon. And so we have a total of 10 minutes to split. I mean, you could be somebody's a spokesperson, that's fine too. If as other people come up, if they just agree and want to voice their agreement, you don't have to restate same things, but go ahead. And we've already sworn you in, so go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, I'm gonna make it brief. The number one thing for our community is this: storing tractor trailers requires that you have industrial district zoning. This is it's a mixed community zoning. However, in order to store tractor trailers overnight, it must be zoned industrial. It's not zoned industrial. And in the past, the tractor trailers would come, but they never were stored the way they're stored now in the last few years. And this is a rodent problem. This has to do with neighbors on the opposite side, but that's the main thing. It's not zoned industrial, okay?
Okay, how long have you lived in the area?
Oh, Lord, I've lived there. Most of the homeowners there, I've lived there for over all my life. I'm 50-something years old. I'm not going to say exactly what. For a very, very, very long time. All my life.
Okay.
All my life. Went to school there, middle school, high school, everything.
Sure, so you're very familiar with the site, and it used to, they trucks in and out, but they never stayed until recently.
Never stayed, and again, he's been cited with Shelby County Code. He refused to even adhere to that. This just didn't happen. Shelby County Code has been dinging him, giving him citations, and he refused to concur with that. Those things could have been resolved by now, but he hasn't.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Oh, but does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Dixon before I let her go? Okay, very good. Who would like to talk next? I have a Mr. Johnson and Miss Munger and a Payne.
I can go next.
Okay, go ahead. Give your name and
I'm
address
Frank
for the
Johnson,
record. Okay.
1473 Compton, Memphis, Tennessee, 38106.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I am a native resident of the area. I'm actually president of one of the associations, the Alcibal Community Association. Lifelong resident of this neighborhood. There has never been overnight storage of trailers at this location. And I'm speaking from 44 years of experience, plus another 20 some odd years, because my father bought our house in 1959. I went to elementary school, have walked every aspect of that neighborhood. We know all the stores over there, and one of the reasons why we know that they're out of violation, and we know that they have not been storing trucks up there, because as soon as we saw the trucks, we started to report what was happening at this location. So these communities, Alcibal, Bunker Hill, Castalia, Prospect, we have a history of contamination from the defense depot. There seems to be a concerted effort now to turn these communities into junkyards. And so we've been fighting battles left and right to stop stuff like this from happening in our neighborhoods. We don't really know what's in these trailers. We don't know what's coming into our neighborhood. We're already dealing with, like I said, a history of contamination. So this would not be good for our communities. We care about our communities. We're still dealing with the health effects of having an 80-year contamination site in our community. And this will not be good for the communities and for the people that still live in these communities.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Johnson? Seeing none. Okay, who would like to talk next?
Good afternoon. My name is Brenda Munger. I live at 1518 Bunny Drive. I grew up in that neighborhood.
Okay, hold on one second.
Okay.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
I
truth?
do, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Munger.
I grew up in that neighborhood, the house, the area he's talking about. I have a rental property there right behind that lot. And as the gentleman said before, I grew up in there. I'm 70 years old. It has not been a truck stop there like the gentleman said before. This is new. We don't want it in our community. I don't live there anymore, but I rent property there. And the people that I rent to have health problems. They don't want all that noise, breathing problem. It is right next to a fire station. Can you imagine the firemen getting up, all that noise through the night, trying to go protect our city? You wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that. I want to stand for my community. I went to Hamilton, Norris, Corey, and I'm speaking up for that community. If we don't speak up, nobody else going to speak up for us. So I'm standing here for the community, and like I said, I own that property adjoining to where he's trying to put the trailer. And I've been 70 years old. It has never been any trailer parking there until now, what he's trying to do. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Munger?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a question for Ms. Munger.
Yeah.
Since you own the property adjoining to this, based upon the testimony earlier from Mr. Smith, he was envisioning a possible compromise involving the parking of these trailers in the rear of the building, perhaps shielded from the street. Can I get your opinion on that compromise?
That would not be nice, sir.
Okay.
You got elderly people live on that street. I have went to this corner. I don't live there anymore, but I have went to this spot where he's talking about and asked those guys, could you please clean this area where the elderly people can see how to come out? And they can't see. Some of them can't afford to move out the neighborhood. They got to stay there. And so it's up to these gentlemen, this lady here, for us to stand up for the community and the rest of the people. But I'm going to stand up for my community. I don't live there anymore, but I got a lot of pride for it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, go ahead, sir.
My name is David Payne. I'm with longtime resident of the, I reside at 1217 Alsey Road. I am president of the 60.1 Neighborhood Association. A little history of that.
Hold on one second. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Mr.
The
Payne.
history of that lot there. The pictures that you see now is really, it's not really justification. I grew up in there. I'll tell my age, I'm 54. I used to go there to get tires changed. That used to be a tire shop. Then all of a sudden, those trucks came, and everybody started to complain. So the park, when he came, all those trucks and trailers parking all on the sidewalks. Children can't walk down the street. The neighbors, they called, and they said that it's impeding their traffic. This is totally unsafe. We totally object this, and we ask that you object and counsel this application.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Payne? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Is there? Yes, ma'am, we got a couple more in opposition. We got a little bit of time left.
Yes, my name is Regina Hill. I'm representing Burgess. My address is 5145 Queen Elizabeth Fairway. My business is at 2090 Elvis Presley. The trucks have never.
Okay, hold on. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
I've been in business there approximately 40 plus years. No, that was never a location where trucks just stop. Now you have people saying they don't see the business. I've had several customers to tell me they have been moved outside of there. So no, that's why I'm opposed to it. Any questions?
Let's see, any questions? No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have one more. Just a little bit of time left.
Good afternoon. My name is Kenneth Thornton, 1461 Elliston.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth,
I do,
sir?
sir.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Trying to see where to start. I grew up in the neighborhood. I do not stay there now. I own my parents' property, 1461 Elliston. I also own 4 other investment properties. I know the area. I go there quite often. There's several factors that we need to make sure you guys consider when we look at if we pass this because of the effect it's going to have on the community. The last 2 years, it's been horrible so far. The amount of the trailers have been parked on the lot, as well as the noise factor that's being contributed to the neighborhood. It's an acre, just a little bit over an acre lot. And I have seen trailers, I want to say 20 plus trailers on the lot, and have the actual engine trucks as well on the lot. You look at the diagram, I wish I have one picture or 2 pictures I can send out. I wish they had a presentation so you guys can see it. The back of that lot, if you look at the proposal to put the parking on the rear of the building, which I think one you mentioned about, that's only 10 to 15 feet on the back of the property. It's on Corey, which I actually own a property, 2100 Corey. This is 2100 Elvis Presley. So I know because of complaints from my tenants in the past, sure. And I've owned that property for 25 years. Never had issue with it before. At this point, we do. And when you start by looking at diesel motor price, everybody understand a diesel engine, when you start cold weather, you have to crank it up. It's going to be idling for enough of time to move it. With this proposal, we're looking at moving trailers back and forth. You're going to have some truck moving around, which is going to be a noise factor. The corner, you have this building, this business here across, right next to it, adjacent to Elliston, you have a car lot. And on the other side, you have a used tire facility. This corner has been congested with trucks. And if you can allow me to show an actual picture, you guys get a good idea of what the neighbors.
Yeah, you can hand it to Mr. Whitehead.
I apologize.
It's okay.
And with that being said, I have a couple points that I wanted to make sure. I noticed the notification, everything goes out. Myself personally, I only got this notification the 16th. I don't know about the other people. I saw on the top of it, it was supposed to have been 77 mailed out, notices mailed out. I talked to the neighbor that I grew up with. I talked to 3 neighbors. None of the neighbors have received notification of this hearing. Which I did ask a few. I don't know if they were able to email their concerns. I hope they did. And I have no problem about asking to continue to email you guys for their concern. I'm not sure if because of the mail service, why they didn't receive it or whatever, but you'd had more of a turnout because with the traffic trying to get on the street, the drop off with this car lot next door, you literally have 2 18-wheelers at one time on the street. I'm not saying this proposal is an applicant problem, but it adds to the problem we have in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And when you start looking at your property as an investor or just a homeowner, you don't want to have to turn on your street and deal with the issue of having 18-wheelers, trailers, 25 or 20 plus trailers on a lot that's only an acre in size, congested. It makes the value of property go down at just a turnoff for anyone that wants to move in or to actually try to rent from you as an investor. I want to have a nice neighborhood for people to rent my property. And this is not it because of what we have changes in the last
Okay.
2 years.
Gotcha. Okay, time's up. Are there any questions for the, seeing none? Thank you much for coming down.
And thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, Mr. Smith, you want to come back up? You have 10 minutes if you need it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard most of the concerns of the neighbors, and I want to let them know that the owner is willing to make some concessions and make some modifications to the site to make it safer. And we're just asking for additional time to get with them and try to implement something, to try to create a win-win situation. Whether it's directing the entrance and exit to Elvis Presley only, adding more landscaping, eliminating the parking at the front, and putting up more buffers in the rear. We're just asking for more time to get with the neighborhood associations and the people that have concerns and talk to them about it, see if we can come up with something that would be workable.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Smith?
I do have a question. On the citation, what were you cited? What was the owner cited for?
I'm sorry?
On the citation, what was the owner cited for?
Parking, storage of trailers, and I think, I don't know how many he has. He's not able, he was sick and wasn't able to make it here.
Okay.
So he would have brought more answers to your questions. But all I was shown was one citation that was issued. It should be in this staff report.
Okay.
And we had a court date, and we were trying to give the judge something, so we submitted this application, and seemed like everything went wrong with the check being misplaced and all of that.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a question. In the report, it refers to this as the use being outdoor storage of tractor-trailer trucks. But my question is, what is the real use? I mean, is he repairing them? What's the business here?
They are associated with the mailbox center down the street. They come in and wait for their next load and go. And they have time schedules that they have to meet. And the drivers come in, and they do have minor repair, brakes and things like that, in the open door bay on the north side of the building. But mainly, it's not really storage. They're just sitting there waiting for their next load.
I noticed in some photos that were passed around, one truck was obviously carrying automobiles.
Say it again?
One of the trucks parked not really on the site, but near the site, and I assume was associated with the business. It was actually a truck that carried lots of automobiles.
Right next door is a sort of I don't know what it is, an automobile storage place. And I don't think it's related to, but they strictly pull bulk mail, the same mail that comes
Okay,
to
so you're saying that truck may not have
No,
been,
ma'am,
okay.
they don't pull cars. They are associated with the bulk mail system.
And the witness didn't say that was their truck. That was on the street, but it just congestion is what he was showing.
I understand
Yeah.
that,
All,
yeah.
Okay,
all along to the north and south of this site, commercial uses, and quite a few cars and things to the north, and I think also to the south. But we are facing, we're on the corner, but we're facing Elvis Presley. And if the community would give us an opportunity, we can sit down and probably come up with something reasonable.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, hearing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to see if we can get For us to discuss a case, we have to have a motion to approve it so we can then discuss and vote on it. So I'm going to see if we can get a motion to approve BOA 21-89 as conditioned by staff.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for staff, but I can do that after we
Go
start
ahead. Yeah,
this.
let's go ahead. Go ahead now. We're in discussion, so you can do that.
Okay. My question is, when someone purchases a business like this that, they're saying was ongoing, do they have to get a new occupancy permit that would, I don't know, document the time it changed hands and the use and so on, or not, if it's an ongoing business?
Mr. Chairman, if I may give
Yes, sir.
a short answer and then a long answer. The short answer is no, but the long answer is I think I know why you're asking. Because when the UDC was first developed, that was one of the items for consideration, that every new business get a new COO. And when we were developing the UDC, I think this is the short window where we were both here at the same time. There was a meeting at code enforcement with 1,000 angry people that felt like that was an overreach, and so we backed off. So the answer is no, and there's a because that, but the UDC originally was going to go there, but it just never did. Another long answer is this is why we encourage people when they're buying or leasing property to spend the best $50 they've ever spent and purchase a zoning letter, because this is how we can proactively address situations like this.
Any other questions of staff or comments on the case? I'm having a tough time with it. Just with it not being zoned at all for that. The pictures here don't really help because they're all daytime pictures. What was happening at night.
This is 2000. We're still answering your older question. This is from 2007, and Ms. Shupdiggs was going through the timeline here to provide. That's 2008. If you can read on the bottom of this or the left of the screen, and it appeared last time she went through this that the tractor trailer started appearing on the site in like 2015, 2016.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's why the image we had up for a while had no tractor trailers.
I was forgotten about that it was the tire place before it went into there. And I was thinking about just overnight storage, which I couldn't tell from the daylight, but that makes total sense.
There we go. 2019, that's when they first started popping up.
Okay. All right. Like I was saying, I'm just having a hard time with it, to be honest with you. Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. I just think the use is totally inappropriate for its location. It didn't start out to be that. I'm somewhat familiar with that area. When I first came to Memphis, I lived along Elvis Presley and remember when that type of facility was not there. And that is literally, in my mind, an industrial use. And it needs to be in an industrial area, not a commercial area. And I just think it's totally incompatible. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
Go ahead.
I agree with both Chairman and Mr. Jackson. I'm concerned, of course, with the traffic. I am concerned that they have been cited, and it seems, it hasn't been totally confirmed, but it has been ignored. And it looks like the main concern, as code has, is the traffic and the truck overnight storage, which is causing the problems for those in the neighborhood. So I know I probably will vote against it.
Mary?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I agree with Mr. Jackson and Ms. Doss. And, I say this all the time, but I really am concerned about it. When we approve something, it's just like it's going to be there forever. No matter if you change the zoning, anything that you did could never change the fact that this got approved on this site on this day. And so that just, I just can't support it. I support the staff and their recommendation.
Any other thoughts before we vote? Seeing none, Mr. Whitehead, I believe we're ready to vote. If you can give us a roll call vote, please.
Dr. Pritchard? Vice Chair Savage Towns?
No, I find that the standards of 9.22.6 of UDC are not being met and will be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Ms. Doss?
No.
Mr. Jackson?
No.
Mr. Malazari?
No.
Ms. Baker?
No.
And Ms. Scurlock?
No.
And Mr. Chairman?
No.
8 noes.
Thank you all for coming down. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Whitehead, will you call the next case for us?
Yes, sir. That brings us to agenda item number 2. That's docket VOA 2021-94, located at 1956 Dunn Avenue. The applicant is Charles Schoaf, represented by Stephen Roberts. The use district is the R6 Single Family District, and the request is a use variance from Section 252 to legitimize an existing used commercial trucking business.
Okay, is the applicant present? Is that the applicant right there? Okay, perfect. Mr. Bacchus, could you give us just a brief review? I remember when we voted on this the first time over on Dunn, and we had a time limit on it. Could you just kind of bring us up to speed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, good afternoon to you and the members of the board. Brian Bacchus with the Division of Planning and Development. You did hear this application in 2019. The board approved a one-year approval with conditions. And since that time, Mr. Schoaf has not been able to come back and ask for the time extension due to what has been going on in our world. Since that time, he has filed this new application to request the same use variance for a commercial trucking business, primarily to sell used trucking and equipment at the 1956 Dunn Avenue. The area, of course, is Castelia, Imogene Heights area, Bethel Grove, east to the east. And the zoning of this property is R6. It's in our R6 district in a residential subdivision. The request includes 3 parcels at the north side of Dunn. The land use in the area, as you can see, is primarily residential. These are Google views from 2014. As you can see, there's general outdoor storage for trucks, as well as in 2019, same condition. The condition did not change at this site. And these are site plans from to your left is the site plan that was approved in 1975, and to your right is the current request for the trucking business with outdoor general storage. In conclusion, we've concluded that the site has limited improvements since 2019 with truck parking. It does have mature trees and shrubs along the property lines to the north and west and east. There's an opportunity to allow for mature trees to remain, and also to plant supplemental trees, including site-proof fencing. The existing land use, we believe, does not warrant the issuance of a use variance for this business, which is classified primarily as an industrial use. Although the property is located directly across from the depot, the existing and improved employment land uses and zoning in that area, we cannot support the variance request as proposed. The findings of fact have not been met, and due to its location to sustainable residential properties in Castelia Heights communities. So based on the findings of fact, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we recommend a rejection of this application. However, if you are inclined to approve this application, we're recommending the following, those site plan conditions, which are listed on page, I believe, 8 of the staff report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have not heard from any opposition or received any emails of opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Bacchus. Is there any questions of staff before we move on? Okay. Mr. Roberts, if you could come speak to us. And I'm going to go, if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and swear you in, even though you're in a representative's capacity, if that's okay.
I'm having a little trouble hearing
Okay,
you.
I'm going to go ahead and swear you in, even though you're here in a representative capacity, just to keep
That's
everything
fine.
even. Will you give your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Stephen Roberts. I'm the attorney for Mr. Schoaf.
Okay, and your address?
195 South Center Street in Collierville, Tennessee.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Roberts.
All right. And I'd like to apologize for Mr. Shove. He intended to be here, but he was diagnosed with COVID yesterday.
Oh, no
So
fun.
I don't think we want him here.
No. We hate to hear that, though.
All right, if I may, just briefly, Mr. Shove bought this property in 2010, and it was operated at that time as a landscaping business, and it continued, and it had been operated that way for 30 years or so, since at least 1966, if not sooner, if not earlier. And so when he bought the property, he was using it, and it says trucking business, and just so we're clear, he sells used trucking equipment, not a logistics company where he's got freight coming in and out. And so he does have vehicles parked there. The original lot, I guess the one on the far east, there was actually a variance for that granted for the landscaping company in 1975, and it continued to operate that way until Mr. Schoaf bought it in 2010, I believe. But I guess the issue becomes the smaller two lots to the west, and it doesn't necessarily show the lots here, but there is a long skinny lot, as we'll call it, the middle lot, running down the middle, and then to the west there is another large lot, and all of that is, I believe, paved, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like it's going to be any kind of residential property, and of course across the street is the former depot, so that's commercial as well. But what he's requesting is that he be permitted to maintain his truck sales, basically, on that property. And I guess he has, just so you're aware, he has made the one curb cut, so there's only one curb cut in the property since he was here last. And due to the COVID issues, he couldn't meet the requirements of getting it done. And so when we were actually in the environmental court the last couple months, they suggested just simply refiling and presenting it. And so that's what he's done. And I think under the circumstances, with this having been a commercial property all these years and being used for the landscape business, and then when he purchased it just for truck sales, I think it's appropriate under the circumstances for it to remain so.
Okay, so if I remember, and staff can correct me, when he came in last time, we basically said, we don't like it, we don't want it, we'll give you a year to do something about it and move it. But now he just wants us to legitimize it, correct?
Yes, other than possibly going in and having it rezoned for commercial use.
Yeah.
That's the only other option he has, I think.
Okay. Any other comments? Yeah, go ahead.
When you're saying truck sales, so as he sells, is there like a fleet of sales, or is it one by one? So inventory-wise, is his inventory pretty quick to turn over, or is it like one by one, or he may get a fleet of 10 at a time?
No, he sells them usually one at a time. It's
Any other questions?
Apparently these pictures are old. The last time I was there a year or two ago, he had a couple trucks, like a cherry picker and that kind of stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments? Okay, we'll discuss. Let me ask real quick, is there any opposition to this case? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. With that, let's see, can we get a motion to approve BOA 21-94 so we can discuss?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any Any other discussion? Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at this case to some degree very similar to the one we just heard. I know they're different, but, you know, back in 2019, I remember the case. You gave me a year to do something with it. It has now been almost 2 years now. Just an incompatible use with the neighborhood that's there. And to legitimize that business being there, I think would be a mistake. Granted, it's the depot across the street. However, it is in the middle or right on the edge of a residential neighborhood. I put myself in those people's position, and I just would not want that adjacent to me to live there. So my vote is going to be no. I think it has to go.
Agreed. I
Thank you,
think, I'm agreeing in agreement with Mr. Jackson. We have to be even-handed too. I mean, this is extremely similar, but probably worse because Elvis Presley is, although it's not in zone industrial in that area where they were, Elvis Presley does have businesses. This is surrounded by residential homes.
It's
So that's
got
even in a
industrial or
trickier-
whatever on the other side, but that's
Yeah.
like basically a park-like setting with no entrances, and then the
Right.
business is way back in the lot.
Right.
Much different, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. We're on the same page.
Yeah. 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 No.
Yeah,
No.
I agree
I don't have
with,
much else to say on that.
I agree with the board, the other constituents of the board. And I'm very concerned about the neighbors. We have more of a residential even on this case than we did on the other. And then I do remember not heated, but very good discussions in 2019 on them trying to be good neighbors. And it doesn't seem like we've gotten any further, i.e. COVID, but still major concern for them then and still a concern for me when I voted then.
Right, so, yeah. In my mind, we added some grace to the last one by saying, here, we'll give you a year to move. You can't do it, but because we sometimes, like the last case, just say, you're done. There we gave them some time, and it doesn't seem like much happened to move those trucks to a different site. So, any other comments before we vote? All right, Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Doss?
No.
Mr. Malazari?
No.
Ms. Baker?
No.
Dr. Pritchard? Ms. Gerlach?
No.
Vice Chair Savage-Jones?
No, I find that the standards of 9.22.6 of the UDC are not being met and the properties would be unduly detrimental.
Mr. Jackson?
No.
And Mr. Rainey?
No.
8 nays.
Sorry, it fails. Thank you for coming down and speaking with us today, Mr. Roberts. Mr. Whitehead, will you call the next case for us?
Yes, sir. Agenda item number 3 is docket BOA 2021-97, located at 386 South Main. The applicant is 18 Main LLC. The use district is the South Main zoning district within the South Main Historic Overlay, SMHO. The request is a variance from 722E to allow 32 dwelling units in an apartment building.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay, and then we have some opposition. So, Mr. Skinner, will you give us a staff report, please?
Sure. Lucas Skinner with the Division of Planning and Development. Again, this is item number 3, BOA 2021-97. This is a density variance for the South Main area for some apartments that are located at 386 South Main. Here's sort of an aerial and land use map, just to give you an idea of where this is. Mulberry Street is to the south, so this fronts on both South Main and Mulberry Street. As you can see, there's some commercial, some multifamily residential uses around this property. Here are some site photos. The entire development encompasses both 386 and 390. So the existing building, 390, is that 2-story building right in the middle on the left photo. So this lot will be the empty vacant lot there to the left of that building, which will be these apartments. The photo on the right is just a view from behind on Mulberry Street. Here's just a general site plan. Basically just shows that this new building will have a similar footprint in terms of stretching all the way from Main Street to Mulberry Street there at 386. And here's just a rendering to show what the proposal will look like. This was already passed at the by the Landmarks Commission back in June. So the conclusions can be found on pages 17 and 18. Just a reminder, this was previously approved for 30 units, so a very similar proposal in BOA 2021-46 back in May. It was found to be consistent with Memphis 3.0, and staff is recommending approval with conditions. And I'm available for any questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Skinner, the question I have is, based on when this was approved for 30 units, now they're asking for 32, has the exterior facade or the height of the building changed in any way?
No, sir. And if it were, they would have to go back through Landmarks, but they are not.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This might be better for them. Do you know if the number of bedrooms has changed since then, or do they just create more units with the same number of beds? I can ask the applicant that.
Yeah.
That's a good question. For that.
I believe it might be just a slight bit, but I'm sure he can probably answer that.
Okay, and then I'll go. Is there any parking that is associated with it, or is this just find your parking?
Correct. I do believe it'll be all on-street parking.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for staff? All right. If the applicant will come forward, please. Give your name and address for the record.
Anthony Dinolfo with PKM Architects. We're at 676 Marshall Avenue, Suite 101.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and talk to us about what changed.
Okay. So with pricing, the owner just came back and asked if within the same footprint and shell of the building, if we can add more units. So we revised the floor plans on the lower two levels. At the back on the ground level, we had initially two pretty large lofted units. So we've just split those up into 3 instead of 2, and that's at 2 of the levels. So we've added 2 more units. So the number of bedrooms would be 2 more.
Okay.
And then in regards to parking, we're on the South Main District, so parking is not required. But this is, the owner is doing another development a block and a half away, and that will have a parking garage as part of that multifamily development.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, well, we'll reserve some time for you, and we'll hear from the opposition. Mr. Walker? Yes. Could you give your name and address for the record for us?
Yes, my name is Russell Walker. I live at 672 South Main. I own a condo at 417 South Main that I bought in 1997.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Walker.
Until just recently, I lived at 417. Right now, it's empty, and my new wife's, I'm a newlywed, daughter is going to live there. So I'm very familiar with it, but I'm just a few, a couple of blocks down at the entrance to the upper level parking for Central Station, just so you can understand where I live. My sole concern, I agree the applicant has done a nice job on this, and I wholly support the development of South Main, and I realize pricing considerations and things that affect how many units you have to put in to develop something down there. My building at 417 was the first one that Henry Charlie did for South Main. It was a war zone when I bought it back in 1997, and used to be a mattress warehouse. My sole concern about this is the parking issue, period. And the fact that the number of people living in there and the units going up. South Main does not look like at all this picture, because there's continual parking all along South Main in front of this building. And just if you're not familiar with the property, right now it's vacant the Mulberry Street side is a story down. I don't know if there's a picture from Mulberry, but Mulberry is a story down from Main Street.
Okay.
And my concern is right now parking's bad enough on South Main, but if you dump this many people on there, it's going to get even worse. And that's my sole concern. And the reason I'm up here, I came on this same issue when the Arrive building was developed from the Memphis College of Art into the hotel bottom story. There's some sort of a restaurant there and whatever. And at that meeting, the applicant assured the board here and whatever that, oh yes, we'll have parking. We're going to lease a space on Front Street, spaces on Front Street where people will be parking when they come to the hotel and the restaurant. And what has happened over time is, I guess, it's more advantageous not to lease the space on Front Street. And so now they've appropriated the street is, whatever, Nettleton Street, as essentially their parking lot. It's no longer a two-way street. It's a one-way street because they have continual cones the whole length of Nettleton Street and for their valet service. And so that takes even more spaces off. So the fact that this applicant says, oh, he's got a nearby parking lot or something, I think that ought to be put in there as one of the conditions for approving this, that adequate parking or approved parking or whatever be maintained for this, whether it's an underground parking garage. At 417, we have an underground parking garage with one space for everyone in that building. Plus, we also, together with 413 South Main and the Paperworks building that's at the corner of Front and Hewling, we have a gated parking lot there, and that we have for people in those three buildings, so that none of the people in those three buildings park on the street. We're not taking any spaces off of South Main. So that's my sole concern here is dumping this additional number of residents and cars onto South Main and Mulberry Street. But they did a nice job on the rendering of the building.
Does look nice.
I have to compliment them on that, and I fully support developing South Main.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Walker? Hearing none. Congratulations.
There's hope for people who are elderly. I turned 71 today. Just to be newlywed and have my first wife die in 1999 at 417.
Okay.
Happy birthday.
All right. If the applicant would like to, do we have any other opposition? I didn't think. Okay. If the applicant would like to come back up and rebut anything, like 11 minutes.
As we said, I think the other property, and this one as well, both received pilots or applying for pilots who have been approved. The one on Front Street, the larger development that does have the parking garage, I believe is a stipulation for that pilot. And additional comment on the concerns for parking is that the DMC has recently done a study that there's no serious need for additional parking, and despite that, they are still doing another parking garage for the mobility center that is within close proximity to this as well. So I think there's ample parking downtown.
So let me ask you about the Front Street property. Yes. So is it apartments that are going in there as well?
Correct.
How many units are planned right now?
I believe it's 165.
And how many parking spaces?
We have, it's been, I believe, 114, if I recall.
Okay, other questions?
Did we confirm the number of bedrooms and the additional units?
It was just two more. It was two more.
It's two bedrooms in each unit?
Do you know how many total bedrooms are in the property?
The majority of bedrooms are studios. There are 8 lofted units, which would be 1 bedrooms, and then I believe there's 12 additional one-bedrooms on the upper floors.
Okay.
So for a total of 21 bedrooms, 20 single bedrooms, and then 12 studios.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Ms. Baker.
I don't know whether this best goes to the applicant or the staff, but I'm looking at the front of this staff report and it says 0.24 acres, a quarter of an acre. Is that right?
Yes.
A quarter? And it's 40 units per acre?
They're
Trying to figure out how it gets to 32.
So they're subject to 60 dwelling units per
Oh, because
acre.
it's mixed use? This is a mixed use building?
Yes.
Oh, I'm not sure you get to 32. Am I off base on that? It just seems like, okay, 0.24 times 60. I get 14.4.
On the first page of the staff report, Mr.
Yeah.
Lucas, in item number 2, states that as proposed, the development would be 133 dwelling units per
Okay.
acre.
I thought I heard you say 2 more than.
Right, they're just requesting 2 more units for a total of 32. Because they were previously approved for 30.
For a total of 32. It says, and then the one before says this development is 133. This
Well, that's
is
just their
confusing.
per acre ratio. With it only being a quarter of an acre, there's only 32 of that.
Right, that was the
133.
original variance, was so they could have over, I think they were, at the original, they could only have 11 or 12 units. So they originally got a variance to have 30 units. So now they're just here to ask for 2 more for 32. Those are just the South Main density regulations.
Well, all I'm saying is I don't see how they get to 32 and it only being 2 more than what you can get, even with 60 units per acre. That's what it seems like to me. It seems like the 133 units per acre is maybe more in line with what it is. Right?
Well, so there's 2 standards, quote unquote, at play here. One is the UDC standard that sets the permitted units per acre at 60. But then there's the previously approved variance from May 27th that set that to 30 units in this building, which let's just say is
125.
125 dwelling units per acre. So there's an approved variance here with 125 per acre. So then they're asking to go up 8 units per acre.
Okay. So was it approved by Board of Adjustment?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, that just, I thought maybe I'd.
Do the math.
Right.
Well, I think that this was approved on consent, and I have found that when things are approved on consent, they're not locked into my memory as good as the public hearing was.
Right, yeah. Any other questions for the applicant? Thanks for coming down, appreciate it. You know, I do have a question for Josh. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Josh, on this. So could you give us a brief discussion of parking versus no parking? You know, parking's always the issue, but our zoning doesn't really require a lot of parking in these, or doesn't require any parking here. So can you kind of give us some background for us to kind of munch on?
So the CBD district, which is the downtown district, has long, I don't know, maybe forever, waived any parking. The idea was, at some point, maybe in the 50s, parking, because downtown was trying to compete with the suburbs, parking became more of a public function. The public, be it the city or the county or some agency of the two, would be responsible for parking in the CBD. When the South Main Special Purpose District was adopted in '99, I think we continued that theme, that we want to encourage development without requiring it to have parking. But the idea was either one, people living downtown will have fewer cars per dwelling because they'll have the conveniences of urban living that maybe their suburban counterparts don't have, or that the downtown parking authority, which is now that entity that builds parking garages, will start building public garages in the South Main, the South downtown area. Well, that hasn't necessarily happened, with the exception of the new mobility center that's going to be constructed in the next few years in the Orpheum parking lot. When I was listening to that testimony, Mr. Chairman, I went straight to 9.22.7 of the UDC, which is entitled Conditions on Variances. And it says, conditions approved by the Board of Adjustment may relate to screening, landscaping, location, and other conditions necessary to preserve the character of the area and to protect property in the near vicinity. Why am I going to that section? Just because parking is not required does not mean that this body cannot condition a very relatable variance to such a condition. And the relatable variance here is dwellings per acre. So I'm putting that ball back in your court.
Sure, thanks.
So y'all have the ability to condition this on site parking if you deem necessary.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
can I
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
want to talk about this a little bit more?
Or wait, let's get to discussion.
Oh, okay.
But we'll get to
That's
discussion
fine.
like right now.
Sure.
Unless there's
That's
other
fine.
questions. Yeah, and so then we're actually discussing.
It's fine.
Can we get a motion to approve BOA 20-21-97 as conditioned by staff?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Ms. Baker, go ahead.
Well, when the South Main Special District was approved, yes, there was no requirement for parking. But same time, there were density caps, which had some effect of, balancing out what somebody could do on one piece of property and left more ability for that to be spread onto other properties. You couldn't just be sucked up, by a few properties. And and then I have a question. The 125, is that what you said was approved?
Mm-hmm.
Is that still good? Has that expired, or is it still in?
That approval is good for 2 years, so until May of 2023. That variance could stand.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we reject this request, they still can have their 30 units that they were originally going to build.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote then. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Malazri?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage-Towns?
Yes, I found that the standards of 9.22.6 of the UDC are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Ms. Gerlach?
No.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Doss?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard? And Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That's 7 ayes and 1 nay.
All right, well, the case has been approved. Thank you all for coming down. And again, congratulations. Enjoy your birthday. Thank you, sir. Mr. Whitehead, will you call our next case, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Agenda item number 4 is docket BOA 21-101, located at 534 McLemore. The applicant is Mark Namyad. The use district is the R6 single-family district, and the request is a use variance to allow quadplex.
Okay, I see. Are you the applicant, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is the opposition here? Or is there opposition? Oh, no.
Mr. Chairman, I pulled this off. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have specific questions you wanted to go into? Or
yes.
do you want to hear a staff report or just start with the questions?
I don't need one.
Let's start with, I've read it too,
Yeah,
so let's start with the question. So thank you. Just have a seat and we'll see if we get some questions answered. Go ahead, Ms. Baker.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm thrilled to see someone making an investment in this area. But when I really looked at the plan that is in the staff report, I just had a lot of questions. And here they are.
Okay.
On the site plan, and I guess it would be, instead of site plan, it would be floor plan for that existing building that they're, I don't know if they're expanding it or just using all the space in different ways. But on that floor plan, I see a bathroom on the ground floor unit. There are 2 units on the ground floor. I see a bathroom on the right side, but I do not see one on the left side. And I don't know what page that's on, but it's the floor plan for the building, the ground floor.
11 and 12.
Okay. On the left side, there's a kitchen, but there's no kitchen on the right side. There's a water heater and furnace on the right side, but not on the left side. I don't see a floor plan for the attic unit, but I'm wondering if it'll have bathroom, kitchen, hot water heater, all the things that you would expect for a standalone unit in a quadruplex, as opposed to a rooming house. The applicant says the 4th unit is going to be in the basement. I just question you, if you look at that house and how much of a raised foundation it has, I have a problem thinking that somebody could live down there and have enough light and ventilation. I mean, this part of the country, the way basements are, unless they're really raised up, unless they're real raised basements. And the foundation of this house just doesn't seem to be high enough to do that. And so to me, this site plan looks more like a rooming house. They would just have, somebody in each of the 2 bedrooms on the ground floor, maybe somebody in the attic, somebody else in the basement, and they would share kitchen, share bathroom. I mean, those were the concerns I had when I looked at this.
Okay, so why don't we pull the applicant up and ask him?
Good.
Mr. Applicant, is it Namyad? Okay, let me, if you'll give your name and address for the record, and I'll swear you in.
Mark Namyad, 8577 Buckthorn Cove, Germantown, 38139.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth,
Yes,
so help you
sir.
God? Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions based on what you said. So it's a duplex on the main floor.
Yes.
Are there 2 kitchens and 2 bathrooms?
There is 2 kitchens and 3 bathrooms. I have 2 bathrooms on the one on the right and 1 bathroom on the one on the left.
Okay.
Let me see if you have the updated drawing.
Mr. Chairman, while Mr. Namyad looks for that drawing, what we could do is add a condition of approval that states that each unit shall be a fully functioning dwelling unit, and dwelling unit is a defined term in the UDC.
Okay.
And by the way, the basement, I haven't done anything, and it might just turn out to be a very good chance of making it into a storage.
Okay.
Because
How tall is the ceiling in there? Do you know?
Oh, the first and the street level is 10 feet.
Yeah.
And then the top is also, it's got cathedral ceiling, and it goes to 10 feet and then
Slopes,
goes
yeah.
down.
And then the basement, do you know how much room?
The basement is huge. It really is. I can bring you some pictures. It's a lot of room. That's why, because of lacking windows and light, I'm turning it into a storage unit.
Okay. Would you be opposed? Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
But you never gave us the height of the basement.
Like how tall?
The basement,
floor to ceiling.
Easily 8 feet. Easily.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, very good. Mary, did you have any more questions?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm just kind of piggybacking on Josh's suggestion, and I would add to that it not be a fourplex, it would be a triplex, because I just don't think, I mean, I don't know whether our approval would result in the possibility of someone living in the basement and under terrible conditions. So I guess the building code has some minimum requirements for windows and ventilation. I assume they do.
Yeah, are there any requirements for a dwelling unit? I know like a bedroom has to have an egress window, correct? I know it. My house, we had to have one.
May I?
Go ahead. Let me hear from him, but we're going to come back. Don't worry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, if it's a question about the building code, he may be actually.
He's the.
But I do know the building code requires ingress and egress for every unit to the outside.
Okay. Maybe we'll hear from. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Nam.
All units have free access and a door to the outside. I'm a structural designer. I've done this in Houston. I have built many houses. Here I was retired. I bought one property, 535, right across from that, it's mine. And right beside it, it's a rooming house. With the ideas that you all have for building that area, which right now I'm the only fool maybe that's investing $100,000 in a house in that place. Next door to me is a car wash. Next door to me is an apartment unit with 4 units. 1 unit is occupied. After that, 5 lots are empty. Then 2 houses, and one of them is about to be torn apart. Across, I have a building, a duplex. Next to it is a rooming house, which is really unlivable. You have to see that. Then there are 2 other houses next to it that are empty, and one is in a bad shape. I pay people to cut the yard there. My choice when I came and bought this was make it into a rooming house because the previous owner, that's what they wanted to do. Because I own the property across from it, I don't like to see rooming houses there. So I bought this and I tore up what they had done, gutted it out, and I have made 2 very nice units, and I'm already getting calls for renting. 2 units and 1 unit upstairs I'm gonna make, but I haven't touched nothing downstairs because of lack of light. I don't believe anybody can live without light. So that's my idea. It's gonna be a storage unit. You can put a condition. I have no problem with that.
Good answer. Did you have any other questions, Mary?
No, Mr. Chairman. At some point, though, I would like to make an amendment to the application.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Namyan? All right, thank you, sir. We appreciate you. And just to check, there's no opposition to this case present?
I appreciate it.
Okay. Can we get a motion to approve BOA 21-101 as conditioned by staff?
So moved.
All right, so let's talk about, go ahead, Mary, did you have any ideas on the condition?
One condition would be that to amend the approval from a quadruplex to a triplex.
Okay.
3 units maximum. The second condition would be that each unit should meet the definition of a dwelling unit with all of the supporting facilities, bathroom, kitchen. I guess each one would have a furnace, a hot water heater. Seems like I had another one. Oh, I know. The other one would be, and I don't know if this is a condition or how we would do it, but I think that we should have the applicant bring back a drawing that shows what he actually has there, so we have it in the record. And that's it.
So can we add so the condition, each unit is fully functional with its own separate kitchen and bathroom. Does the furnace or the boiler have to be, do you have to have one in each unit, or does it serve the whole house at
Mr.
one
Whitehead,
time?
could you give us the definition of dwelling unit, and that might solve our definition?
Right. So let's get a second on Mary's motion.
Okay.
Well, wait, before that, can we add to the condition?
So we can discuss it.
Oh, okay.
Then we discuss and amend.
Second.
Thank you.
We got it.
Just going back to Robert's Rules of Order, which is about to apply, a discussion on a motion without a second is an interstitial, as the Catholics would say, limbo. So what I have right now is a new condition number 1. This approval is for 3 units, period. Mm-hmm. Then I have a new condition 6, because these 4 now go down a slot. Each unit shall meet the definition of a dwelling unit under the UDC. Ms. Baker's last statement about the site plan, I think, goes to existing condition 3, which shall be amended to say the applicant shall submit a site plan, including a floor plan, to the Division of Planning and Development, et cetera. Now going to the definition, the definition of dwelling unit does not require a separate furnace for each unit, but it does require separate living, sleeping, cooking, eating, and sanitation. So you need a living room, a bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom, and I guess eating and cooking can maybe be one room.
Yeah. Because sometimes like a walk-up or a brownstone or whatever, they have one boiler that serves the whole building, right? So what I wanted to add to the first condition is that it's a triplex with the basement storage, just so we're explicit about that.
And is the maker of the motion amenable? Okay, so now new condition number 1 is this approval is for 3 units with the basement to be used exclusively as storage.
Yes.
For storage.
Yes. And when we strike the separate furnace?
I think we're going to just use the term dwelling unit, and it defines it there instead of us redefining the term.
Roger that. Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Savage Downs?
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDCC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Ms. Gerlach?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Doss?
Yes.
Mr. Malazzer?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
8 ayes.
All right. Thank you very much for coming down, Mr. Namyai. Mr. Whitehead, will you call the next case for us?
Yes, sir. That brings us to agenda item number 8, docket BOA 21110, located at 4048 Minden. This is a correspondence to BOA 2138, approved earlier this year. The applicant is Timothy and Christine Taylor. The use district is the R10 Single Family District. And again, the request is a modification to that earlier approval regarding a condition that dealt with evergreen trees, placed on that approval by this body.
Okay, is the applicant present? There, the applicant. If you'll come on down, I think that, at least I remember this case from the last time we heard it. So I think we might go straight to the applicant to ask about, give your name and address for the record.
Tim Taylor, 4048 Minden Road, Memphis, Tennessee, 38117.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, tell us what changed and why you're wanting to change the condition.
Well, my wife's worst fears have been realized. I accidentally filled out one of those cards. This thing could have been approved on the consent agenda. I guess it could have been, but the offensive dormers, like the 2 giant eyes looking down into people's yards, they're gone. I told my builder, take them down. You know, we plan to live there the rest of our lives. Right, we did not want to be that neighbor. So The side with no dormers, that side, that faces west. And so there's no windows west, there's no windows north. So anyone who had concerns, those are alleviated. I have mutual friends and neighbors with people in opposition. I hope they're thrilled because they're not looking at two giant eyes looking down on them. They creep me out, to be honest. I've learned that what looks pretty good on paper looks horrible, can look horrible in real life. So here's where we are. We're just asking that we could just do the landscaping we would prefer to do because there's nothing now that should concern the neighbors as far as their privacy goes.
So let me ask, so the site plan you just showed, Mr. Bacchus, that's what it looks like now. And before it basically had the dormers on both sides. Okay, right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
The site plan is the approved site plan. The landscaping has not been installed.
Okay. All right, any questions of the applicant? All right, hearing none. We're seeing none. Okay, thank you very much. And again, I don't see any opposition to this case. Can we get a motion to approve BOA 21-110?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Jackson?
Question for Mr. Bacchus. Mr. Bacchus, I know the intent here is for the board to make this decision, but I'd like to hear how staff feels about not including the landscaping in it, although the dormers have been removed.
I have to, Mr. Jackson, to honestly answer the question, I would have to put myself into the shoes of the property owner to the north and northwest. And looking at the photos in this, in the packet, it's the existing workshop and garage. The height, of course, as you know, that was the original variance. And the height extended the ridge line of the home approximately 2.5 feet, 3 feet at the most. So there is an opportunity to for the landscaping to be installed, and quite frankly, this is the right season to do that. And from my professional opinion, I think the landscaping should be installed.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If memory serves me correct, and Mr. Secretary might help us with it if you could, it was not only the fact of the neighbors feeling like they were being watched from those potential dormer windows, but the fact that they could see the structure and they felt like it was looming over their yard. Am I correct on that?
I think that was part of the testimony, yes.
If that being the case, even though the dormers are removed, for lack of better words, the imposing aspect of the structure from the neighbors looking at it is still there. And the purpose of the landscape was actually twofold. One, for people not to be able, who are in the new constructed structure, not to be able to look into the neighbors' backyards, but also for the neighbors, when they looked out of their backyard, not to see the structure as well. That being the case, I would recommend that they still put in the evergreen trees.
I know the site pretty well, going by, and so this is what I remember from the case, and correct me if I'm wrong. The neighbors to the western side talked a lot about the change in the level of, their yards were so much lower because Minden goes up there. Mm-hmm. Minden rises about 6 inches until you pass this house, and then it shoots up. I ride my bike by every day, and I've looked at this house every day, and because I was kind of like when I looked at it the next day, I was like, wait, they're up, but it's a false flat where they are compared to their neighbor's yard, as opposed to 3 doors down where it might be 5-6 feet up. Okay. As you're going up. So I found some of that testimony that seemed like it's so much higher. It was
Not that much higher.
Not much higher at all. I mean, I would say if I had to say it's higher or lower, I'd say it's higher, but it can't be more than a foot. So in my mind, after that case, some of that was discounted once I saw the site.
Okay.
And the people that had the complaints were the people that are furthest away from this, not the side where the structure was actually built. I don't think our eastern property owner had any issue. So we gave a variance to get closer to that side.
Right.
So just trying to remember the case.
Sure. No, I appreciate you saying that. Yes.
But, and it is higher than the rest of the house, but the way, at least from Minden, you can see it, but not very easily because it's back far enough. It's not like that you have this looming structure. But at the same time, they're used to not seeing anything in somebody's yard as opposed to now seeing something. But, had the house be, if the lots were situated differently, there's houses, my neighbor's house sits just like that from my house. Just the way our lots sit, we're at different angles on each other. It's not so just to flavor some of that, what we heard and then versus what I saw the next day, it sure wasn't much of a slope.
So to add to that, what you're saying is the fact that if they weren't 2 foot higher or 2.5 foot higher than the regular structure, they would be permitted by right and didn't have to do anything. So the dormers are gone.
Dormers are gone. It's just
the exaggeration of the slope, whether intended or not, is not as high as portrayed to be.
As what I took what they were saying. How about that? As what I first perceived, I was like, oh yeah, I was thinking in my head, I know that hill because I ride on my bike. It goes up right there. Well, this is kind of before it, right? It's like the last house before it peaks up.
Okay. All right.
But it is higher, and that would block some. It wasn't a drastic case as of what we maybe thought it was.
It wasn't as hot an issue as
it didn't look like it to me when I saw it the next day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, but that's just to give you some background on just knowing the site. Any other thoughts?
This was the proposed, right?
That was the proposed, yes. And she's looking at, just for the record, the site plan with showing the green growies in the back. Remind me again, Mr. Bacchus, did we have a variance for how close it was to the rear? Or was it just the height of the structure and then a variance on the eastern setback?
Yeah, the variance was for the height and also to encroach into the east side yard.
We didn't have a back line and we didn't have a western sideline that we were far enough away from those.
That's correct.
Okay.
And they would have been able to do it by right on the east side if it wasn't for the window.
Okay. Any other thoughts? I mean, everybody likes green shrubberies too. I mean, they do look good.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I think I probably need to make a correction to what I just stated.
Yeah.
There are restrictions on this subdivision that gave them minimum setbacks, if you recall.
That's
right. On
right.
the east line, there was a restriction for, I believe, 20 feet on the east side yard, and then on the front was 60, I believe. So
Right.
there are restrictive covenants on the subdivision.
To your memory, though, based on those restrictive covenants, which we can't enforce anyway,
Right.
the only thing that was being violated was the sideline to the east. There wasn't like a back line restrictive covenant. Okay.
The sideline and the side yard, east side yard,
Yeah.
and the height.
Yeah, okay. Any other thoughts or questions? All right, hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call, please?
Mr. Malazri?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard? Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Doss?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage-Jones?
Yes, I find that the standards of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Ms. Spurlock?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
8 ayes.
All right. Thank you. You've been approved. Thank you very much. Mr. Whitehead, will you call the next case?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Agenda item number 9 is docket BOA 21-111 which has a companion case, special use permit 2118, located at 3744 Sturgeon. The applicant is Tanya Walks Barnes. The use district is the R6 Single Family District, and the request is a variance from 262B2 to allow a group daycare home on a minor local street.
Okay. I see the applicants here. Mr. Bacchus, I wouldn't mind hearing a brief staff report on this one. I've read it, and I was considering also pulling it off of consent, Ms. Baker. So if you could do that for us real quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Brian Box with the Division of Planning and Development. This application is for a variance request to allow a group daycare home on a minor local street more than 150 feet of a major arterial street, which is Getwell Road. This property is on Sturgeon Avenue, a loop street that's off of between Robin Hood and Eccles, I believe. The area is primarily residential. However, this is in the east of the Cherokee neighborhood, just west of the major road of Getwell, north of 240, south of Kimball, and east of Prescott. Land use in the area, as you can see, is primarily residential, single-family residential, with some duplexes dispersed throughout on the east portion of the side. The front yard, this is a view of the front yard. These are existing conditions as they are today. Ms. Walker Holmes was so grateful to give us these photos, as well as additional photos that are included in your packet. This is a home that she bought, has been rehabbed, and quite frankly, done a very nice job of rehabilitating this home. This is a rear yard. This is the rear yard, as you can see, the outdoor play area, as well as small child equipment, play equipment. These are existing conditions where she has placed new fencing along the front and on the, I believe, the west property line. This is the site plan we formulated to illustrate the conditions of approval, and we're requesting that the site plan include a sidewalk from the street as well as a new concrete drive to improve the site, and also to allow a new sod to be placed in the front yard. The pickup drop-off area, this was the concern of the city engineering department. We feel that the group daycare home is a residential style, shall remain in a residential style structure. We believe that requiring circular drive in this area would be inappropriate. Quite frankly, there's a mature tree in the front yard that would be very costly to take down. We don't agree with removing that large tree, so we're recommending that the traffic flow to her daycare remain in a counterclockwise direction to the site, and have a pickup drop-off point in the front to allow for small children to just walk out of the car directly to the front door. In conclusion, the applicant has also requested a special use permit, and this is why we're here today, to get a variance prior to going before the Land Use Control Board. She's requesting a group daycare home for 5 to 12 children in a home setting, but the application has been held by the board, Land Use Control Board. The property is, however, located approximately 495 feet or 500 feet east of a connector street, Robin Hood Lane. The variance from above, from the use standard of the zoning code, is necessary to locate the daycare home within the neighborhood, and the practical difficulty exists in the extraordinary exceptional situation and location of the site being located on a loop street, which with limited access and circulation. The loop street of Sturgeon allows for a one-way vehicular traffic pattern in a counterclockwise direction to from Elliston for pickup and drop-off of small children. We believe the strict application of the variance request of the zoning code on page 6 of the report results in a unique hardship on the applicant. The creation of residential lots on a loop street network was not the direct result of or deliberate action by the owner of the applicant. We're recommending approval of the application, and we believe the findings of fact have been met because the property has an extraordinary and exceptional situation, being located on a loop street network with limited access and circulation. we're recommending approval with conditions, with 2 conditions as listed on the screen. We did receive calls from 2 people in the neighborhood. They were not opposed to it. They were actually in support of it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple questions, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, sir.
So the Loop Street, like, I guess I don't get what's unique about that. It's not a one-way street. You're just saying they need to use it one way for pickup and drop off,
That's correct.
right?
That's
so
correct.
What makes a Loop Street unique compared to a through street? Or would a through street have been like if they had put this on, what's the street to the north of Sturgeon?
Miami.
Miami. Would it have been okay to have it on that street?
No.
Okay. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do is just figure out what the difference between this street and any other street that's not Elliston or Robin Hood.
Yeah. A loop street is a two-way street, and it's defined as a street that connects two collectors.
Okay.
So it can be one way, it can be two-way. In this instance, it is only one way in and one way out from a practical standpoint. You can go into Sturgeon, but you also come out of Sturgeon. You can go into Sturgeon, you also come out of Sturgeon. So it's one way in, one way out. It depends on how you look at it. A loop street doesn't take you anywhere. It takes you to a different location, but almost in the same location.
Almost in the same area. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions of staff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I pulled this off.
Yeah, go ahead.
And you went right to one of the questions that I had for Mr. Bacchus. It's just hard for me to see how, and I would call that an L street, not a loop street. You know, because the loop street goes back to the same street, doesn't it? It doesn't go to 2 different streets. It's just a technical thing. But anyway, but it doesn't really, I don't see it as a practical difficulty for using this property. I mean, it's zoned R6. You can have a house there all day long. I mean, I can't see anything that would cause a hardship or a practical difficulty for that. And I have a problem with their rules for where you can have a group daycare center that were set up just so people would know where they could file a special use permit for that particular use. And it just seemed like almost, I don't know, going in through the back door or whatever you want to call it, to go to the Board of Adjustment, you know, and get a variance so that you could then file a special use permit application. I think it's interesting, and to my knowledge, has this ever been done? It's an interesting approach, but I thought maybe it was required by somebody or something. But I question that also. And one other thing, that front yard is almost completely covered in gravel. Is that for parking?
No.
Okay. Also, is this an existing use? I had the feeling when I looked at it, it might already be there, but it's not.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. You said an existing.
Is the group daycare existing there?
No.
Oh, okay.
Now,
Okay.
Here's the timeline.
I'm sorry, we got out of.
That's all right.
No,
you can ask questions of staff at any time. So.
Okay. That was the reasons why I pulled it off, and I struggle with the reasoning, I guess you'd say.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I just want to give you a timeline so it's clear. Ms. Walker Holmes has filed for a special use permit. In review of that application, it went to the Land Use Control Board. The staff, it was my case, staff recommended a hold because of the variance. So that's why we're before you today for the variance. So it wasn't one before the other.
It came up in the review of the
in review of the special use permit. Yes.
Good deal. Okay. Let's see. Dr. Walker Barnes? Okay, you can give your name and address for the record for me?
Dr. Walker Barnes, 530 Old Hearthstone Circle North, Collierville, Tennessee, 38017.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and share with us.
Actually, that is limestone in the yard. However, since those pictures, we have went back and sodded the front yard up until the door. So the rest of it is limestone. And the reason for that is because that whole yard was no yard. So we came and did the backyard, we did the front yard, and we made, so where that truck is sitting now, that's the driveway, and there's grass in the other. Now, the grass is gonna take a while to grow because Bermuda sod can't be planted there for the reason that you see. The tree is gonna cover, it's not gonna get sunlight. No, it's not being operated currently. However, I'm aggressive. I'm proactive, and I wanted it to be ready for when I'm ready to go. So it is fully furnished and looks like a school inside. I just wanted to follow the proper procedures before opening.
Okay. Any questions? So when you built it out as the daycare it's going to be, did you know that you couldn't have one in that area due to how far it was from Robin Hood?
No.
Okay.
The reason why I did it, I surveyed the community. Matter of fact, when I was doing my dissertation. And one reason why a lot of the parents don't work in that community is because they don't have daycares and within 5 miles. But there's 12 elementary schools. And there are several places in that community that the parents can walk to. However, they're on government assistance. So I did it as an initiative to actually help the community. And everybody loves it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have another question for
absolutely.
this time for the applicant. Did you get a permit for any of the changes that you made to the interior of the structure from code enforcement? Did you file an application for a permit to code enforcement and get a permit to do that?
There's
improvements?
been no changes to the structure inside or outside.
Anything that would require a permit? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Walker Barnes, are you amenable to the conditions that staff has recommended as far as with the site plan and the sidewalk and all of that? Are you amenable to those?
I didn't hear you.
Are you amenable to the changes that staff has recommended? Are you having any issues with that?
They've already been made.
Okay, thank you. No further.
Any other questions of the applicant? Seeing none, let me ask again, is there any opposition? Not seeing any. I think it's just y'all left. Okay, would someone care to make a motion to approve BOA 21-111 as conditioned by staff?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Ms. Baker?
I truly admire what she wants to do, and I know she's probably the best person to do that. I have such a problem with the way this is being done, though. And just every time you do something like this, it sets a precedent for doing it again. And that's the reason why I pulled it off, because if you don't pull something off consent, then it means that you read it and you agreed with it. And I think process matters, too, on these items. And this one is, to me, it just stretches the requirements too far for the approval of a variance in this way. And so I will not vote for this.
Okay, are there any other?
Yes, respectfully, I disagree. I think what the applicant has done is in alignment with what Mr. Bacchus has recommended, and I'm inclined to align with Mr. Bacchus as well. I don't see an issue. She has not made any structural changes to the exterior or interior, so I don't really have the same issue that Ms. Baker has, so I would be inclined to vote in favor.
Mary, just so I understand your comment, are you saying the way it got here, or just that it doesn't fit what a variance is, as opposed to?
Well, I'm saying really both. I don't think it meets the requirements, number one, for practical difficulty. I don't think location on that street puts that property in any different position for this use than most of the other properties on that map. So it doesn't meet the requirements, number one. And, I don't know whether this has been done before when you have a set of rules that say what can be filed as a special use permit and ultimately make their way to the council to get approved. I don't know whether this has ever been done before, that you could go to the Board of Adjustment and essentially change those rules by getting a variance. And that's essentially what this is.
Well,
I know you'll do a good job. I'm not in any way casting I'm just talking about process.
I'm sorry, we're already done with any sort of discussion. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're only discussing from the board. So you can sit, you can just have a seat. I mean, you can stand if you want to, but like I'm just letting you know the process. Thank you.
And, another one might come along that we don't want to approve that's in the same sort of condition as this. And I just think it's incumbent on the board to understand the regulations, understand what a variance is supposed to do and what conditions it's supposed to meet before it can be approved. And, that's just how I feel about it. But I understand that others on the board may not agree with that. But I'm just letting you know that's why I can't vote for this.
Sure.
But if I could be Josh for just 1 second, or try, while we want to be even-handed, at the same time, as Josh would say, there's no precedence. It just depends on the situation, the neighborhood, what's allowable in the area, and so on. So there's no precedent. We won't be setting a precedent at all. These are just, what am I trying to say? They're just respective decisions respective to each different case. So, again, we do want to be even-handed. Like if there's, like we were earlier with the other trucking situation, but it wouldn't be a precedent. And yeah, we do have to understand. It is incumbent upon us to understand the variance, what a variance is and when it should be required. You're right. I do agree with that. And I'm going to defer to Mr. Bacchus's decision on whether variance is required.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Savage-Towns.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on how we got here to the board. It was presented to council or land use, right? And then land use said bring it to the board. So I want to make sure there was no curtailing or going around the system in presenting this case.
She actually filed a special use permit application. Staff reviewed it, and we mailed it out to our land use control board members. Staff recommended a hold, was held on consent.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm clear on there was no sneak around the system to get to the board. It was a process that was determined. She did follow the steps necessary to even get here, if we will.
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Chairman, if I may augment Mr. Bacchus's explanation for maybe a higher level. When we review some of our older special use permits going back to the 1950s, it was a little unclear as to whether the city council could could grant a variance through the special use permit process. Well, that uncertainty was cleared up in the UDC when it was adopted. The UDC says a special use permit is a use identified as such, and with all of the use standards and all the other standards of the UDC being met. So the UDC in 2010 finally answered that question, that variances cannot be granted through the special use permit process. So then a few years later, with that being clear, we said, oh, if you do file a special use permit and you find out through the process, as we did, that you need a variance, we stop the special use permit process, and then you have two choices as the applicant. You can turn that up to a planned development, because planned developments can grant variances, or you can go to the Board of Adjustment if you feel like it's a hardship. And if you take that second route, once you get the Board of Adjustment approval, then we can go back to your special use permit, we can go to the Land Use Control Board, and we can go to the City Council. Now, the City Council could say, notwithstanding any variances approved, we don't find that the special use permit test is being met. So this special use permit will still continue.
Right.
Only if this body approves this variance. If this body doesn't approve this variance, the applicant has only one choice, and that's to turn her special use permit onto overdrive, which is called the plan development.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I just have Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question for staff. So essentially, if this property was located, 350 feet closer to a major arterial street, then it wouldn't even be here today. Is that correct? It would just go straight through special use permit?
That's correct. If it met the use standards in the UDC under that section of the code, yes, that's correct. It would not be here before you today. If it were located, I guess, at Elliston and Robin Hood Lane, but 150 feet of the intersection, no, it would not be here.
All right. Thank you for that.
And I just want to kind of clarify, well, not clarify, but just respond to Ms. Baker's concerns. Quite frankly, I grappled with this one as well. I looked at this area and looked at the zoning map and the zoning history of this area, and there are no daycares in this area at all. And quite frankly, no property within this area could within the immediate location would meet the use standards in the zoning code for daycares, group daycare homes. But they come in on a case-by-case basis. No one is filing one at Elliston and Sharp or Elliston and Robin Hood Lane or in that area, immediate area. So 5 to 12 children is not as many children as you would like, but however, we believe the location of this property between Elliston and Robin Hood Lane does not lend itself to being used as a daycare center, but however, we believe it meets the practical difficulty because of that situation. It's an exceptional situation where this property is located off the beaten path, so to speak, from a major collector, a major arterial, and it's not within 150 feet of a major local. So I believe, based on those instances where there are no other daycares in the area, the location of the property itself is not within an area where it would meet the use standards. It is a practical difficulty, undue hardship on the owner of the property to use it as a group daycare home in a residential district by special use permit.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to just make one more comment. I know I'm probably pushing this too far for what it is, but because it's just a group daycare, but I just want to make sure that you see this point of view, that the whole reason why the Unified Development Code sets out these requirements for where you can apply for different non-residential uses in a residential area is because that it gives some guidance to where they can be. They can't just go anywhere and file an application for it. And then the second thing, I think if I thought it met practical difficulty, I might even be able to get over that. But the practical difficulty would say that, you know, because of something physical about this property, it can't be used for other uses permitted in the district. And that is just not true here. There's a house there, and there's no practical difficulty for using this property for a use permitted in the district. And so that just adds on to, that just seems like an unusual process, and I personally hate to see a process like this getting started. So anyway, that's it. I promise I won't say anything else about it.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Any
You
other?
don't believe me, right?
We'll see.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
if
sir.
I might.
Yeah.
On paragraph 9226A, 1 and 2, it also talks about exceptional situations and conditions. It's not all physical. So that's where I am.
I think I hear both sides of that, and I get it. My biggest issue, I think, is like I have not next to my house, a friend of mine's house. They have a daycare next to them, and there's no way it can be. It's got to be legal non-conforming or something like that, and it's just a mess. And that's what I worry about. And so my question, I guess, would be, could we do some sort of sunset on this where the people that are operating the daycare got to come back every couple years and show it still looks as good as it does now? It looks fantastic as far as like the building looks great. It's not an eyesore to anybody coming by. But would that be a problem for the special use permit process, that we have that limitation on it? We've done that with other things where we're not sure, and we're worried like she's going to do a great job. We think they're going to do a great job, but you know, she may sell the property to somebody else who doesn't do a great job. And now we have a not great daycare in the middle of residential. As Ms. Baker said earlier in another case, what we do is forever unless we do something about it.
Well, we did do that with the place on William Arnold over there by Whole Foods, which was, I think it was a daycare or some kind of other special.
Yeah, they wanted that overnight stuff, and we've done that. You know, made Rail Garden come back again, made some other people come back. What are your thoughts, Mr. Secretary, if you have any?
Well, I'll give you a more vanilla answer as a parliamentarian.
Yes.
However you decide, what we're going to do is, if this is approved, we're going to mush this all together into one approval that goes to city council. So what we did with the Rail Garden, if you recall, it too, half of it was in one zoning district, the other was in another. And so it had this city council board of adjustment thing. Finally, eventually, rather than going to both bodies every 2 or 3 years, the city council relinquished their review and so passed it all over to y'all. We would just work it out so we don't send Dr. Walker Barnes through both processes every 2 years. So it could either be this group or the city council or neither. But if the board is concerned, certainly we could do a kind of a frequent revisit.
I would like to do a friendly amendment to the conditions, and I would like to have it be 3 years. And could you maybe massage that into something that sounds like a condition that fits?
And what's the sunset? Like, what is this sunset? I mean, usually we'll do like 2 years, 3 years. Is there a longer one? Like 5?
There's forever, but the sun never sets.
Yeah, I mean, forever are 2 different things.
That's the normal, variance can be like that.
Is 5 a thing?
I think
Is 5 years a thing? Because I mean, she's addressing the need in the community. So I don't feel like there's a slight risk, for lack of better phrasing.
I really am kind of stuck on 3, but that doesn't mean it's 3 every time. It could be they come back, and I don't know if Rail Garden has to still come back or if we let them go. I don't know I can't remember that, but
Staff tried to let them go, and y'all said no.
That's right. Yeah, I think we did. So, but it doesn't mean it's not 7 next time or something like that. But I think the first one I'd rather stick with the 3. But y'all can say no. We want.
I'm gonna
10.
rock with the majority. I would think 5, but whatever the majority says,
4?
I'm gonna rock
Can we get a 4?
I can go with 4. I can do 4.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I like your idea about 3 on the sunset. I think that's not asking too much of the owner to come back in 3 years and look at it again. So I'm inclined to go with your 3.
I agree.
That's 3 3s. I'm not seeing anybody else going with 4. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'll
ma'am.
vote if there's a 3-year
3.
sunset.
Okay. All right. So go ahead. 3 years, Josh, and do you have something written up for us?
So this can be accepted without objection.
Yeah.
New condition 3 will read, this variance shall expire in 3 years, at which point the applicant may seek a renewal, period.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Go ahead, if you'll give us a roll call vote, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Melasry?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard? Ms. Gerlach? Ms. Dawes?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Jones?
Yes, I find that the standards of 9.22.6 of the UDC are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That's 8 ayes.
All right, you've been approved. Do well, and good luck with your special use permit. Mr. Secretary, will you call our last agenda item, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Agenda item number 11 is an amendment to the board's rules of procedure. And in our staff report for this, I have outlined 2 different categories, and I'll go through those 2 categories very briefly. The first category is the more substantive one, and that covers reconsiderations. On page 6 of the staff report, under paragraph 7 of Article 6, we currently have a section called reconsiderations. That's in the white and black verbiage, yellow being proposed amendments. The current section under reconsiderations deals specifically to those applicants who did not read their staff reports. They were placed on the consent and approved on consent. They read it, and this existing language gives them the opportunity to come next month and say, will you please rehear my item so we can talk about one of these conditions. We're adding 2 other categories of reconsiderations, the second being entitled Board Initiated Reconsiderations. If you recall, in this last few months, we've had 2 requests, one with regard to the Minden case that we just reheard, and one with regard to the Broad and National case. And this will breathe language into the rules on how we process these. So we have 7B here that references Article 11, Section 3, that speaks to when that board-initiated reconsideration is made, and that's prior to the approval of the following minutes. This kind of is standard Robert's Rules of Order, which deals with category number 2 change to our rules and bylaws, which could make this moot, but I think we go ahead and explicitly, we're well served to explicitly list it. So in that kind of case, what would happen is we have a request, maybe we didn't know about it until the very afternoon of the meeting. Someone says, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened. I just found out about it. I'm sorry I didn't do a petition for a rehearing. The deadline for that is 7 days in advance of the meeting. What I would recommend is the board, a board member says, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion so we reconsider that agenda item. We get a second, and then you deliberate on the merits of such a reconsideration. And just as we have in our rehearings, you can invite oral arguments. So if that person's jumping up and down, let's go ahead and hear his case. Why was he or she unable to file a petition for rehearing? And if they give a valid argument, then you vote on the reconsideration and we place it on the following month's docket. The last one, again, it's covered by Robert's rules, but I think it does benefit us to go ahead and put in our rules. Little c, what I call same-day reconsiderations. These can only be made if everyone who provided testimony is still in the room. This goes to your circumstance where we get a motion to approve and it fails. But for whatever reason, someone who voted on the prevailing side wants to it failed because it didn't have all the conditions it needed. So immediately, someone who voted on the prevailing side can make a motion to reconsider that and maybe add a few more conditions. Well, what the board would do is vote on that motion, and then once it's back on the docket, we can address it from there. But again, that's standard Robert's Rules of Order stuff, but I think it helps to be in here.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
So on your last example, if we reconsidered something that way, that's not opening up testimony unless we choose to. That's just the board reconsidering that decision as opposed to rehearing the case, correct?
We don't say. I like to put things as plainly as can be.
We're not required to rehear the case. We can just rediscuss unless we want additional testimony, I guess would be that would make sense.
What I would recommend is we add the same language. No oral arguments will be heard unless invited by the board.
Okay,
to that section.
That'd be great.
So then, because who knows? Maybe you do need, hey, I'm thinking about adding this condition, with regard to this thing. Applicant, what do you think about it? Well, then opposition, what do you think about it? Or maybe y'all already, it's a condition that's already been thoroughly discussed and that horse is dead, so you don't need to hear that. Okay, so we'll add that to little c. And then finally, category number 2 is making of motions, giving seconds, voting on motions. We don't list that in all those mechanics in the rules, and I'm not suggesting we do. I am suggesting that in Article 12, we rename that article Construction and Amendments, and we put in a new paragraph 1 that reads, in the event these rules are silent on a particular procedure, Robert's Rules of Order shall govern. This is something you often find in board rules, but it's not currently in ours. So we say, Mr. Rowling and I will tell people, Robert's Rules of Order applies if silent, but it would be nice if the rules actually said that we said that, so we can say it with more certainty. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's a brief description of these amendments.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, ma'am.
Mr. Whitehead, this is great what you've done. Of course, sending us all of these rules, I really sat down and read them again, and it prompted a question in my mind. The section on final disposition. I notice in there that it simply refers to a resolution, disposition by a resolution, but there's no mention of a site plan being attached. And of course, we do approve a site plan with it. And so is there any way that we could kind of piggyback on this process and maybe get that added in there, or is it somewhere else? Or
I did think about that. So we have I don't know what's going on, but our volume of work has exponentially increased in the last few months. And so Jordan Johnson, our planning technician, used to do the minutes. I now do the minutes. And I thought about that same exact thing. So if you've noticed in your boilerplate resolution, whereas, I added a whereas in there that the site plan included in the staff report and all conditions included in the staff report are hereby approved. That's why your minutes don't list the conditions anymore unless they're modified by this body. And so we've breathed the site plan into the resolution that way by just amending our boilerplate minutes.
But if it's not attached and in the records, for somebody to pull up, if you're interested in what got approved there, it's just not there. It's just a resolution, and you can't see really what was approved. And these conditions things we ask them to do with the site plan and everything are really important to what ultimately gets approved. And it seems like it should be available for somebody to pull up.
Well, we've gotten fancy. So what Mr. Bacchus has done is gone to our minutes that were on this month's agenda. And what we've done is, at the top, just like on the agenda, the staff report is now hyperlinked to the minutes. And those hyperlinks are evergreen. So the site plan submitted is hyperlinked to that staff report.
But no, I'm talking about a citizen who is interested in an area and they see a lot of Board of Adjustment approvals by going to one of your maps and they click on it. Would they just get a resolution, or would they be able to see would the site plan be available? That's my question.
Well, right now they can't click on the zoning atlas, but someday we're going to take all of our case materials, upload them into the zoning atlas so you can click on a case on the zoning atlas and be able to download the case for that. Probably won't contain the minutes, but it'll contain the staff report.
Okay, and then one more thing. What gets sent to code enforcement?
We do a notice of disposition for each case that includes the conditions as approved by staff or the board with a site plan included. And I guess Mr. Bacchus is taking us to an example of a notice of disposition.
That's where I was getting that's not really required in the rules of procedure. So, okay.
Well, the final disposition, that's why we changed, we used to call it board approval letters, and I changed the nomenclature back to the old
notice of disposition.
Bob Stacy terminology, notice of disposition, because the rules call it a final disposition. So I guess technically we should say notice of final disposition, but same difference.
But it doesn't require the attachment of the site plan. That's all I'm saying in these rules. And that's what I discovered when I read over them this time. So I'm just bringing that up in case we want to try to add that in there at some point.
Well,
that's all.
We usually do, but sometimes, I mean, we're not. Are you providing testimony off the mic? Mr. Penzis is reminding me that sometimes we send the notice of disposition, ASAP, but we highlight in yellow, we have not yet received a final site plan like the conditions say. So sometimes the final notice of disposition does not include the site plan because we don't have one, but we let codes know that. And sometimes it takes, people have 2 years. Sometimes people take 1.99 years to give us their approved site plan. So unfortunately, it's, there's 87 scenarios. Thank you, Mr. Penzis, for your unsolicited comments.
Okay, so are we now to consider voting on these, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, sir, and if you want to, when you make the motion, if we want to make sure that the oral arguments section is added to Article 6, Paragraph 7, Section C, just go ahead and include that in your motion. Or
So I would then ask if we would get a motion to approve Agenda Item 11 with the amendment of the reconsideration Section 7C to add the phrase, and no oral arguments will be heard unless invited by the board.
So moved.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Are there any further announcements today, Mr. Secretary?
No, sir, because the deadline, because the fourth Wednesday is early this month, our application deadline for next month is not until next week. So we're not sure at how big our docket's going to be as of yet.
How big is it so far?
Zero.
Yeah, it's zero.
Most people, as they wait, the extent of 2 years, they wait until the deadline date to file.
Okay, with that, this meeting's hereby adjourned.